Well, the bottom of the Big Ten looked really bad in week 3. So bad that UCLA fired their head coach just 3 games into the season. Man, what in the world is going on?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Zach Seyko, host of Locked On Nittany Lions, your go-to spots for Indiana and Penn State athletics. We appreciate you being with us on this crossover episode. We're back for another week. And look, week 3 was fun in college football, and the Big Ten had some ups and downs, so much so that UCLA fires their head coach just 3 games into the season. We're talking week 3 reactions, plus we're going to talk about the Hoosiers and the Nittany Lions both being 3-0, plus our week 4 picks and predictions across the conference. But Zach, just 3 games into year 2 at UCLA, and the Bruins said, we've seen enough. Get this guy out of here.
Yeah, we were talking about it for quite some time now, at least the first couple of weeks among the Big Ten squad, and then it actually happens. It comes true where this isn't just, maybe, hey, worst case scenario, Deshaun Foster's out of a job. No, he is out of a job. And we have to start here because, hey, the top of the Big Ten didn't look too great either, right? It's kind of a what's going on in the conference here because Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State, to an extent, all look sloppy in some regard. But before we even get to that, we have a coach fired and Wisconsin getting embarrassed, Minnesota losing to Cal pretty decisively.
Yeah.
I mean, UCLA at some point, we do this to have conversations about the Big Ten, and you and I agree that we would like to say and think that this is, the best conference in college football. But it really makes this conversation a lot harder when UCLA is already letting go its head coach in year 2.
Yeah.
This is the start of year 2 and week 3 into that second year.
Yeah, I mean, just not doing ourselves any favors is the Big Ten with, like you said, a team like UCLA or Wisconsin going to the SEC against Alabama and just not performing well at all. I mean, the bottom of the conference is really the bottom of the conference. But, I mean, is this the right move for UCLA? Just 3 games into year 2, a 5-10 overall record for Deshaun Foster at UCLA. And they said, look, we've seen enough. Losing to UNLV on the road, right? Of course, letting a non-con team come in, a New Mexico team that you paid $1.2 million to lose inside the Rose Bowl. I mean, I think it's the right move. I think Deshaun Foster just wasn't it. And we should have seen this coming, right? His first press conference at Big Ten Media Days, he just embarrassed himself there. That should have been the sign. They should have said, ooh, yeah, maybe this wasn't the best idea. But I think it's the right move, man. I think you got to move on if you're UCLA.
I think Deshaun Foster is going to be at some point a decent head coach, but he's got to work back to it. I think this was too much responsibility all at once because I like how he carries himself. I think he's a no-nonsense type of guy. I think he can be a leader of young men, but that's the thing. He's not a drill sergeant. He is a head coach of a Power 2 program, right? I think we should separate the Big Ten and the SEC from the ACC and the Big 12. This is a job in the Big Ten, and it has to be treated as such. So I think when it's not so much about being a head coach anymore. It's not so much about the X's and O's. It's how you manage a program. And if the writing was on the wall, again, if UCLA was so quick to make this decision, then that means that there was total and comprehensive buyout, meaning that nobody went to bat for him because they don't make these decisions lightly. It's when why does a coach stay at this place for a little longer than anticipated? Okay, so maybe that's a Billy Napier or Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I'm thinking, I don't mean to just bring in the SEC into this with some coaching hot seats. But if they stay a little too long past their due, it's because alumni or current players or staff members are saying, hey, this guy's the right guy. Yeah. You need to continue. That means that Deshaun Foster just didn't really have anybody in this circle that went to bat for him. Yeah. And that's the telling part of all of this.
Yeah, so look, if you're UCLA fans, it's not all that bad. You weren't the only ones to fire your coach on a Sunday afternoon. Virginia Tech did the same thing. They said, "Yeah, we've seen enough here too in Blacksburg." So,
And that's former Penn State defensive coordinator Brent Pry. Again, people had sold out. Okay, that's the thing. There wasn't, hey, just give him one more chance. We just need to rally behind him. They said, no, you can see the results speak for themselves. Old Dominion flattening Virginia Tech. And I know this is a Big Ten show, but then New Mexico flattening UCLA at home. You see the common themes here. And like I said, this just distracts from Wisconsin getting embarrassed by Alabama, not making it. And it goes along with the common theme of it's not about that you lose. It's about how you're losing too. Okay.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Yeah. And not only does it distract from a team like Wisconsin just not showing up against Alabama, but what about the top of the Big Ten this past week? I mean, Penn State didn't look all that great against Villanova. Oregon gets out of a game against Northwestern. Ohio State just limps through a game. I mean, the top of the Big Ten wasn't all that impressive either, in my opinion, Zach.
No, and there's explanations for each of them. So for Penn State, I mean, we'll talk about this more in the upcoming segment. So I want to say I do want to reserve my thoughts there, but the box score, the final score does not tell the entire conversation around this Penn State Villanova game. Let's just leave it at that for now. We'll get into that in the second segment. For when you look at Ohio State, okay, Ohio's a much better team than people are giving them credit for. They beat West Virginia a week ago. That's a team that should win the MAC conference, albeit people are believing that Ohio State is still a national title contender, and they are. We're seeing that, and that's the belief. They make a statement against Texas, and then they go out and they should look dominant here. And they do in the box score, even though it didn't necessarily translate into points. Hey, Julian Sayin throws for over 300 yards. It seems very efficient, 25 of 32. Okay, he has a couple of interceptions, but I wish Drew Aller would have had that kind of game. I wish Aller would have thrown for 300, multiple passing touchdowns. Seemed like it was easy to move the football through the air. And again, that's what we're going to talk about more. So Ohio State and Oregon played a game at 9 Pacific time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Yeah. Do we really need to take that into consideration here. Okay. So they won convincingly, decisively. That game was put away in the third quarter of a team that kicked off at 9 a.m. So if you want to say, oh, Oregon looks sloppy, it was just, okay. There's a reason for it.
Shout out Northwestern for the backdoor cover on the last minute touchdown run against Oregon. Yeah. I mean, some folks were happy about it, others were not, but Northwestern does cover, so maybe that's all they want there at Northwestern. And so the bottom of the Big Ten looked bad, the top of the Big Ten looked okay, but both of our schools are 3-0, Zach. The Nittany Lions and the Hoosiers, both 3-0 after really tough non-conference schedules. We talk about that coming up next, plus our Week 4 picks as well. All that here on a Locked On Crossover. This episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time that you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. We've talked so much about Fernando Mendoza this week, about his performance last week against Indiana State, and I'm just saying he's going to have to do that again this weekend against Illinois if the Hoosiers want to come away with a win, start 4-0 and 1-0 in Big Ten play. So just like Fernando Mendoza delivered for Indiana, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season long, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credit. So order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November 18th. Check it out today with DoorDash. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Hey, it's Thursday Night Football tonight if you're watching or listening to this as it comes out, so you can get involved right there. You think the Bills are going to go all over the place? Cool. Throw $5 on it. If you do, and it wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets right now using FanDuel. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, they're going to give you $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We continue on with a Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. And now it's time for us to talk about our team, Seyko, before we make our picks for week 4 of Big Ten college football. Because, look, not everybody can say it, but we're both 3-0. I know our out-of-conference schedules were just the toughest we've ever seen. They're talking about putting us in history books, Seyko, because of how hard our non-conference schedules were. But I want us to talk a little bit about how we're feeling, right? Because we didn't play over-the-top competition, and now it ramps up with Big Ten play. So for Penn State in particular, how are we feeling coming out of a 3-0 stretch in non-con play with Big Ten play starting right now?
Yeah, and you say, well, Penn State's 3-0, Indiana's 3-0. Indiana might feel like a true 3-0 team to an extent. You know, you kind of have to play the game within the game in these non-conference games. Is that Penn State didn't cover any of the spreads. Okay, well, it's the spread, you know, the odds makers, they do something completely separate. But it's also, again, winning those battles against yourself. And Penn State was creating more battles for itself than it was winning them against the opposing team, especially on offense. So while they are 3-0, the offense doesn't look 3-0. I think the offense is 1-2 in a way, and that's what we've been talking about, or maybe a 1-1 and a tie, because they are winning games comfortably, and they do some things right, but not to the extent that Penn State fans and now media members kind of collectively are all saying together.
Yeah, and for Indiana, I would say after Friday night's performance last week, it feels like a 3-0 team, because week 1 against Old Dominion, that's fine. Turns out that's a pretty good Old Dominion team. I tried to tell people, look what they did to Virginia Tech over this past weekend. Then you played Kennesaw State. That was fine. You kind of got your feet underneath you a little bit, but we wanted to see more from the offense, a lot cleaner play, a lot of defensive alignment issues is what Curt Cignetti talked about, and you did that against Indiana State. Now, it's Indiana State. It's the same type of team that Villanova is, right? It's you are so outmatched if you're that team, and Indiana does so 73-0. Fernando Mendoza answered all the questions. The offense answered all the questions, and the defense did what it was supposed to do it against an inferior opponent. And so there are obviously concerns, right, about, well, can you step up to big competition? Indiana's got Illinois this week. We'll talk about here in just a little bit. It's a big week for the Hoosiers, but I feel a lot better now than I did after the Old Dominion game. And so what's the biggest question for you? If there's one thing you want to see moving forward for Penn State right now with Big Ten play beginning, what is it for the Nittany Lions?
Yeah, and I laid it out as clear as day. It's the offense.
Yeah.
The starters have held opposing teams to 3 points. Nevada had a field goal against the 1s and 2s. When it comes to the offense, they've just needed extra time. Nevada, they look great, or they looked at least really good. Maybe I won't go great or that was a perfect performance, but they looked really good. And then against FIU and against Villanova, it's just, why are you struggling with this?
Yeah.
So the offense, fortunately, they have 2 weeks to kind of get right, figure it out. You get 2 weeks to prepare for Oregon. Oregon only gets 1 week to prepare for you and gets a cross-country trip. You couldn't ask for a better setup if you're Penn State. But that's what I'm keying in on is what is the, I feel like it's all mental too, because the talent is there, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it the right way. They're not doing it well.
Yeah. And look, I put that on James Franklin, right? I mean, that's got to be on him as a head coach. There's so many, obviously, questions and people really wondering, is he the guy? Can he get it done, right? National title this year for Penn State. But, man, if you're not performing the way you want to early against inferior opponents, you are going to struggle in Big Ten play against Oregon. So I don't know how you feel, but I put that on James Franklin.
And I mentioned that. I talked about that. I think that James Franklin is a little too laissez-faire right now on the sideline. I think that he could be a little more involved and say, go up to Drew Aller and say, you're a fourth-year quarterback. You got to do your job.
Sure.
Even if some of your, hey, your teammates are letting you down in some categories, but you're also letting yourself down to an extent. A couple missed reads, a couple not so great passes, and poor decision-making against inferior teams. And at some point, you just got to say, you got to go to him on the sideline and say, calm down. I'm not saying that you scream at him. I'm not saying that you necessarily yell at him, but maybe get stern with him and be like, dude, you're a fourth-year quarterback. This is your third year starting. Why are you doing this? And the same thing goes for anybody else. It's not just Drew. It's the running backs. It's the wide receivers if they let you down. It's the offensive line. The defense is doing everything. So I don't need James Franklin to hype up and talk up the defense. But I also do think James Franklin's in a position where he does trust his position coaches to be the head coach of the position group. So that means that if James Franklin is going to deviate those responsibilities, if he's going to delegate, then that means not Andy Kotelnicki, Danny O'Brien is kind of somebody. He's the quarterback's coach. Needs to, Trace McSorley, who's an analyst, needs to be a little more active in keeping just Drew in line.
It's so crazy that if Penn State just figures it out offensively, they could be the best team in college football. I believe that. I think you believe that.
That's how the preseason chatter went.
Yeah, and the fact that it's still that going into week 4, I think is a little alarming for Penn State. And then on the Indiana side of things, again, we had some concerns. I'm not saying that because you blow out Indiana State that it's all solved, everything's fine, the Hoosiers are back in the playoffs, but you've feel better now. At least I do. And I think a lot of the Indiana fans do too. And look, this week has been a lot of fun building up for Illinois, but you have to be ready for Illinois. We're going to make our picks coming up in just a few minutes. I mean, that's a good football team that's walking in here. And obviously by far the best team you've played up to this point. And if Indiana can continue to move the football, score at will, and then not have alignment issues on defense, look, Altmaier will pick that apart. If you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time, he'll take advantage. Illinois will. And they will show no mercy in this game. And so for Indiana, I am excited, but I'm also a little nervous to see how they look in their first big time game. And it doesn't get easier. Illinois on the road at Iowa, on the road at Oregon. We come to Happy Valley too. I mean, there's a lot of tough games in there that I have to still see it to believe it from the Hoosiers. But Kurt Cignetti's still your head coach, and I think he's one of the best in college football. So both of our teams are 3-0. Non-conference play is over, and the real deal starts now. Some teams have already opened up Big Ten play. Everybody else does this week. We make our picks for week 4 around the Big Ten when we come back here on a Locked On Crossover. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply just move. Mazda delivers confidence with every single ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model of our vehicles. And you can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, final segment here on a Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Nittany Lions, and the fun begins now. We get to make our week 4 picks across the Big Ten. And look, we've had some good picks, Zach. We've also had some not so good picks, and everybody gets started this week in Big Ten play. A couple of teams playing out of conference, some teams on bye weeks as well. But man, there's some fascinating matchups across the conference this week. And it starts on a Friday night with Iowa and Rutgers. Iowa going to New Jersey, going to Rutgers, who's undefeated, by the way. Early spreads on this game. Iowa 2.5 against Rutgers on the road. Now, that could change throughout the week, and if you're catching this and the line has moved, then, adjust accordingly. But they're calling this basically a really, really tight game between Iowa and Rutgers. Who do you have?
Yeah, I think we're going to figure out a lot about both of these teams. The direction because Rutgers is at least starting to gain some traction, starting to gain some steam. Okay, again, they didn't play in Iowa State, but against Ohio just looks better than people. They should win the MAC. That's a MAC conference winning team. Okay, you play another one in Miami of Ohio, and then you get a tune-up game against Norfolk State. But for the most part, other than a few speed bumps against Ohio, Rutgers has actually genuinely looked pretty good for the team. They're punching above their normal weight class, so to speak. Iowa, on the other hand, okay, against Albany, kind of the same thing as Penn State. You didn't put them away. Against Iowa State, yeah, not so great. You lose. And then UMass, okay, the passing attack opens up, and we know what Massachusetts is. So I think better football is ahead for Iowa. I do think the offense will look much better in the second half as opposed to the first. But can they do that right now? I don't think they have it together right now. Ooh. And I'm going to take Rutgers at home.
Wow, that's a Rutgers team that could put up some points. Inferior opponents, I know, but they've put up some points this year. And if this somehow becomes a shootout of sorts, I was in trouble. We know that. I mean, hey, they did almost put up 50 last week, so I guess that's worth the celebration. But they are not going to be able to run with Rutgers if they have to score. But that Iowa defense is legit. I will give Kirk Ferentz the benefit of the doubt here.
Okay.
I will pick Iowa. I don't love the pick, but I'll say they get it done on a Friday night in the Big Ten. That's one of the biggest matchups of the weekend in the Big Ten. But so is Michigan and Nebraska. The Wolverines heading to Lincoln. Our friends at FanDuel, this line opened up Michigan 2.5. It's moved all over the place this week. Can Michigan go and get it done? They've looked good. They dominated the ground game last weekend. Can they go on the road and get a win in Big Ten play against Nebraska?
Well, I think what's helped here in Michigan's case is Bryce Underwood does have that road game under his belt now as a true freshman quarterback. So the environment in Norman, Oklahoma isn't really going to get too much more daunting than that at this point in time. Again, for Nebraska, while I do think that environment will challenge him, you've already been there, done that. I think you still need to get situated, acclimated, which is why you see the spread being where it is, because I think if this was later in the season, Michigan would be a touchdown favorite, maybe even more than that. Who knows?
Okay.
Nebraska, though, they're kind of in a similar situation where they're in this rebuild process with when's the quarterback going to take over? When's the quarterback going to get us to another level? So Dylan Raiola, even though he's 1 year ahead, I look at this QB battle pretty similarly as two guys that are still trying to figure things out at quarterback with a team that is just waiting for them to really kind of take the lead and push us forward to where we need to go. This one's truly a toss-up in my mind. I like Bryce Underwood more as a QB prospect than I do Dylan Raiola. And when I'm not entirely sure about how this game could go, I'm going to default to coaching and the quarterback. So Bryce Underwood, but then there's Matt Rule. Matt Rule, I think, is better than Sharon Moore. Honestly, I do think if resources equal, I think Rule can do more than what Sharon Moore can.
Okay.
So. That's where
he just talked himself out of his pick.
I know. I'm going back and forth on it, man. I will go with Michigan here. I think there is that. Is Sharon Moore suspended for this game?
I think he's back. He was suspended last week. That was the one game I think he had to serve, right? And he got to do it again.
I wanted to double check that because then So when you have a freshman quarterback, that makes it difficult. So I will go with Michigan here to go on the road, and Nebraska, I just don't think has the same. It's the defense that Michigan has that is just better than Nebraska at this point.
Yeah, it is. And look, Michigan's defense is legit. Their ground game is legit too. If Nebraska can find a way to slow that down and truly make Bryce Underwood beat you, then you have a chance. And look, he very well could. He's super talented, and they finally realized last week, Michigan that is, that Bryce Underwood's a really good athlete, and he can run it as well. And so if Michigan starts to take advantage of that, they could really win some games this year. But I don't know, man. I have a weird feeling that Nebraska is going to find it offensively. You're talking about a quarterback in Dylan Raiola that's flirting with 1,000 yards already this season through 3 games in 2025. I don't know. Mid-afternoon, Lincoln, give me Nebraska. Give me the Cornhuskers to upset Michigan here. I think it's a true upset. Give me Nebraska to get it done against Michigan on their home field. And we've been waiting for this one. We'll rapid fire some of the other ones in a minute. Illinois and Indiana. I don't care what anybody says. This is the game of the week in college football, Zach Seyko. Not in the Big Ten, in college football. Game day decided to go somewhere dumb like Miami, which is stupid, but whatever. Illinois and Indiana. It's a top 25 matchup. We knew it was going to be this way all preseason long. It's the Illini in Bloomington for a night game under the lights, Illinois or Indiana? There's only one right answer here, Zach. Come on.
The betting models or the college football power ratings all point to Indiana in this instance, right? And I think it's the same thing, that Illinois is this walking upset, or that they're this team that's just walking into upsets routinely. They tried to project that against Duke, and the analytics are a way to measure these things, but they are not the way to measure these things.
Sure.
You have to take into account Brett Bielema and what is returning from a season ago, and that this team, this is the team from a season ago that is battle tested, that knows how to play football together. So while I do believe, and I have a lot more respect for Indiana, I just don't think this is the game that they win.
Oh,
it's going to be close.
Zach,
it's going to be close,
man.
I'm going to take Illinois, no more than a field goal. Maybe this one even goes to overtime here, and so maybe it does get to a touchdown based on, hey, the back and forth overtime and everything else, where one team scores and the other team doesn't. But this is a one-score game. I know that much. I can guarantee that much. But if you trust the betting models more than you do me, so be it. But Illinois, I think, wins this game, even though all the metrics say otherwise.
Look, we've done a lot of breakdown of this game on Locked On Hoosiers this week, and we'll continue to do so right up to kickoff and things like that. But I think this could truly be a coin flip. I do. I mean, I think Illinois is a really good football team. They're playing well. They've already got a signature win, like you mentioned, going on the road to Duke, which may or may not look as good now as it used to. But it's still a road win for Illinois against a P4 squad. Indiana doesn't have that yet. And so if the Hoosiers can get up, if we can be ready, if this team is focused, the crowd's going to be electric. The atmosphere will be one of the best in college football this weekend. I think Indiana can be the better team. I think Indiana can win this football game. And so, again, picks and things, we've done that on our show, and we will continue to do that. So I think it looks good. I think it's going to be a really, really fun football game, and I'm glad they made it a night game between Illinois and Indiana. Okay. Rapid fire, my friend. Let's do this. Maryland on the road at Wisconsin. Is Maryland going 4-0, or does Wisconsin get up off the mat after being drummed by Alabama last week?
This is perfect. This is a battle of two uglies that we've talked about everywhere. Big Ten squad, and now they get to meet early in the season. Maryland has momentum. Wisconsin does not, but it's the first true road test for Malik Washington. So I want to remind people to kind of take that into account. So I will take Wisconsin in this case, because I don't know that Malik Washington has to do the same thing that Bryce Underwood just did. Camp Randall is still a very great atmosphere, to say the least.
Yeah, that Wisconsin defensive front is legit. Their secondary got picked apart by Ty Simpson in Alabama, but their defensive front is legit. I'm taking Wisconsin to bounce back and get a win over Maryland. Oregon's going to do really nasty things to Oregon State, so I think we can kind of move on from that one. That's going to be really, really bad. Yeah. Purdue surprisingly looks decent. They had all their chances against USC. They just couldn't pull it off. They now go on the road to a really, really mad Notre Dame team who is 0-2 for the first time in a while. The spread does not favor Purdue here at all. Can they pull off a miracle upset against Notre Dame and a mid-afternoon kickoff?
Here's what I think Notre Dame wins because they're the better team, and I still think Marcus Freeman's staff is going to be the better. There's more talent there. This is a home game. But you say mad. What about demoralized? That's 2 walk-off victories back-to-back, and one of them's on your home turf. And now you don't have a conference. You don't have a conference game to win a title and guarantee yourself a spot. Notre Dame's backs are against the wall here. So you say, hey, they're going to come out angry. I say demoralized. Watch for Purdue to make this one a lot tougher, especially they can be that bull in the china shop. So I will take Notre Dame to win just because they are more talented, but Purdue might make this a one-score game.
Our friends at FanDuel had this opened up as nearly a 4-touchdown favorite for Notre Dame. That's a team that put up a bunch of points last weekend against Texas A&M, but they gave up a bunch of points as well. I'm with you. I think Purdue keeps it tight, close, at least interesting, but I do think Notre Dame comes up with the victory. Washington, quick trip to Washington State, fun rivalry game. This will be Saturday night. Upset alert here, or is Washington just too good?
So I am not as much of an expert on Washington State as, kind of seeing some of these other teams here, but I do. Hey, I'm going to trust Roman over at Locked On Huskies between what we've heard about Damon Williams and what we've heard about Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston. They have the trio that wins you football games. It's at Washington. It seems weird, but Washington has that. So give me that. I will trust that, and it's not a cross-country road trip. So
right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Washington has the talent. This will be a fun game because of the rivalry, but I think by the second half, I think Washington will have command. And then a late kick, 11 p.m. Eastern time. This is criminal. This is where a Big Ten expansion starting to come back to bite some folks. Michigan State on the road in USC. They're in the Coliseum, 11 o'clock at night. Michigan State, USC. Two teams who are also undefeated, Zach. Can Sparty get it done, or is USC just too powerful? Do they have too much on offense for Michigan State?
No, this is not a game that I give Michigan a chance at all. Between the atmosphere of going to the Coliseum, between USC being a dark horse to be, hey, maybe a team that contends for the Big Ten title. Okay, maybe. I think they're closer than they are further away from that. I don't see Michigan State as that. So Michigan State will do a lot of things right. They have their own personal checklist of goals. Beating USC probably isn't on that list this time around. So 11 p.m., man, you're going to be 2 a.m. finishing a football game. If you're Michigan State, so let's just keep it at that. USC wins, they'll cover that spread.
Yeah, I have USC winning kind of big. I love our boy Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans, but it ain't going to happen this time. Mark is going to be, he's great. He's a great guy, just maybe not a great team.
Doesn't matter here.
No, it doesn't matter. USC is going to absolutely roll in this football game. And so it should be a lot of fun in week 4 across the Big Ten. We continue talking that next week, and we're having so much fun on these Locked On crossovers. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions. Make sure if you're watching or listening to this on our respective channels, you follow us on your audio platforms. You turn on those notifications. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We're your daily spot for all things Hoosiers, Nittany Lions, and of course across the Big Ten as well. We're doing this every week, and we'll do it again next week. So we appreciate you being here. And until next time, Big Ten fans, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.